when you're relying on that rank or your position to get something done, that's when you're going to get people obeying you but not respecting you. And when people are obeying you, they're probably just going to do enough to keep their job. They're going to do enough to not get in trouble, but they're never going to give you that true 100%.
Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome to the Fireside Podcast. Before we get into it, I just want to give a good shout out to our mates at Dark Horse Coffee. As always, thanks very much for supporting the show. We really appreciate it. Today, we've got James Jensen back again. James Jensen was our first ever podcast guest, actually. So, James, it's cool to have you back, man. And I can't believe that it's been, over 6 months since we chatted last time?
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to see how the podcast has been going as well. It's good. Awesome.
Yeah, appreciate that. And look, I wrote a post about it, but we are very appreciative that you put your trust in us and you came and got amongst it into a completely unknown quantity. So yeah, I will always be grateful for that. So thanks very much.
Anytime.
Nice. Looking forward to wrapping into it today with you. Obviously, for those that haven't heard the first podcast with James, I recommend you go back and listen to that. That's a bloody good listen. But in that one, we focused a lot more on his background in the military and kind of how that was for him and what he learned from the military stuff specifically, because he's a former SAS Commander and he's also the owner of K6 Consulting. So we dived into his military background a lot, and today is going to be more focused on the types of things that we're seeing out in the leadership world, more in the corporate sector. So yeah, go back and give that first one a listen if you want to get right into the military stuff. That'll still come up because it's a big part of who we are and it's just imprinted in what we do, I think.
Yep, I'd say so.
Nice, man. All right, let's get into it then. So some of the things we're seeing out there is questions around how do people go about building a team that will operate effectively when they're not actually in the room as the leader. So what are your thoughts on that, man? And what are you seeing out there?
I think it's a really good question. It's something that I often ask leaders when I go to their teams to work with them and say, if you were to take leave or take a holiday for 2 or 3 weeks, would your team function? And it's a really good sort of analysis to see how that team is sitting at the moment, or has that leader inadvertently usually made themselves the go-to for everything. And the funny side of that is usually they're the leaders that really need a 2 or 3 week holiday as well because they've taken on so much. Look, my perspective on it is that you have to, like a lot of leaders talk to me about wanting their junior leaders to take more ownership. So I think we need to rephrase how we look at that, because it's a big ask for some people just to take ownership of things, to look for opportunities and say, look, I'm going to take this off the leader's plate. I'm going to show initiative and do this. Like great team members do that. But also when you're a leader, you're not the first leader that they've worked for. And many times they've worked for leaders who have punished people who show initiative or shut down people who try and take ownership of things. So when we say to people, hey, I want my team to take more ownership, what we really need to do is give them ownership and support them. So in regards to that, one of the key jobs I believe as a leader is that you should always be looking for the next person who's going to take your position and start training that person up, give them opportunities, support them, take a really strong mentoring role with them. One of the first books I read when I was in the military was called One Bullet Away. And it's about the perspective in the US military that you're only one bullet away from having to step up and take your leader's position if they get injured. So that's that mentality that we need to sort of build up the people in our teams. So I think there's one part of that, which is you need to invest in the person who you see as your second in command, who is the person that's going to step up when you're away, and give them the opportunities and then support and mentor them. You can't just show someone what you need them to do and then delegate. We're skipping the 2 most important steps, which is we have to like coach them. Like this is how we do it, and ask questions and walk them through it. And then we need to get to the point where we can half delegate, but we're always there in the background to support them if they need it. And once we're comfortable with that's when it's that gold, perfect world that we want to be in, which is we just delegate things away. And we know that the person's got the skills, the support, and the clarity to actually conduct it. So really investing in that one or two people below who are in your team that are going to be the people that step up. And I think the next part of that is I'm not sure if we talked about it in the last podcast, but truly getting your team invested and involved with what the team's outcomes are and the team charter, the team values and everything like that. Sit down with your team at the start of the year and give your vision. Like for me, when I was a team leader, at one point with my team, I said, look, my goal is for us to be the most deployable team in the Special Air Service Regiment. What that means is that anytime anything happens somewhere in the world, the headquarters are going to look at our team and say, we want to send K6 because that's the team we trust and that's the team we know are going to achieve what we need them to do. And then the ones that are going to represent us really well. So I said that to my team. That's the vision I have for us. What do you think? And they were all like, absolutely, because all they wanted to do was deploy. And then I asked them, how do we do it? So I did the opposite of what I'd done previously, which is, this is my vision and this is how we're going to achieve it. And I gave a brilliant training plan, all the courses we were going to do, all the things we were going to focus on, the values that we had, like how we'd dress when a general was on the base or how we'd dress when we went to the headquarters building. I came up with all of that and I had to drag people. But what I did when I did it that year and I said, how do you think we should achieve this? We spent half a day just going through. They came up with their own training program for the team. They came up with their own values. They came up with their own behaviours that were going to help get that team to achieve the vision that I had, that they had bought into. And look, maybe what they came up with was maybe 80% as good as what I came up with, but they were 100% invested.
Totally.
Whereas if I came up with a 100% solution and they were 60, 70% invested in it, then I've got to drag people. So for getting that sort of team that will be able to step up and do what needs to be done while you're away, I think partially you need to invest in the person who is going to fill your role. Then the other side is you have to get the team invested. Geez, there's probably a lot of other things we could talk about there as well. Like when you feel like you've got that over-escalation culture where people have all the information, they've done everything that they need to, but they won't make a decision that always seems to come to you. That's when just those simple things of, instead of giving your perspective, you just ask questions and just say, look, what do you think we should do in this state? I'm not really sure. That's why I've come to you. I said, yeah, okay, but if I wasn't here, what do you think is the best option? You're the subject matter expert. I actually don't. You're the IT person. I don't know anything about IT. I'm just your leader. But what do you think? And then when they make that call, if you believe it's the right one, or even if it's maybe not the perfect one, you empower them and you say, yeah, look, let's do that then. So when you build that mentality and you stop being the answer to all the questions and you start giving them the confidence that they have the right answers, that's another one that I think will go a long way.
Yeah, I love that. And there's such a powerful question around how would you go about it, or what are your thoughts on it? Or it's something very simple, but it signals a high degree of trust and that they're important, and what they have to say matters. So you get so much just out of that. And I loved what you said around, it's all well and good just to be like, take ownership, man. And look, here's all these tasks. But if you're not there to help them through it and be a sounding board for their thoughts and concerns, and hey, man, love what you did here, but did you consider this? And hey, have you thought about that? Like just little things. It doesn't have to be a lot. It's just a touch point here and there, eh? But then you'll see and hear leaders that are like, oh, he should have taken ownership. Like I delegated it to him. I was like, oh, cool. What follow-up support did you give to them? So I think a lot of the time that can just turn into a bit of a cop-out, around, oh, but I empowered them. I just gave them all this shit to do. It was like, okay, but then you basically left them to die.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Chris, the other part that you've touched on there as well is that at no point do you ever lose accountability as the leader.
Totally.
Even if you're on leave for 2 weeks, you empower the team to do the right things. Something goes wrong, you don't get to come back and say, I wasn't there, they did it. Even if you're not there, the accountability sits with you. Ownership can sit with them, but accountability sits with you. And I think that's how another way that you have to build that trust, because the team has to have that trust that if they do make the wrong call, that you've still got their back, because they probably didn't do it from being malicious. They probably didn't do it from being lazy. They just made a mistake, which is going to happen, and it always will happen. We're only human.
Yeah, and when you own it, it goes wrong, and when you eventually own it up your chain or whatever it might be, it's like, hey, I'm trying to empower my troops to be
Yeah.
the best versions of themselves. And yeah, we missed the mark there. That's on me. But I'm not going to change my methodology. Like,
Yeah.
I don't need robots. I want people that can think laterally, make good decisions under pressure, that are autonomous, obviously within the bounds of whatever you're trying to do.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I think as well, like it is, I love that question around what do you think or how would you go about doing it? But I think there's a caveat to that. There is some times when the person's coming and they just need the answer from the boss. They just need the direction.
Yeah.
And we've got to be careful around just always going back to them with questions, because it might be really time critical. It might be really sensitive for whatever reason, or have a lot of consequence. And sometimes they do just need us to make the call.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. Where we can, we should consult.
Yeah. And I believe with leadership, there's very few definitives. You should probably, maybe there are examples, but I can't think of too many times when running leadership training, you can say, always do this or never do that. Every leadership isn't simple. Like, we're dealing with the most complex things in the universe, which are human beings. So, and like you said, the situation changes. Sometimes a call needs to be made. But if you're very selective when you do make that call, and when you do know when the right time is to step in, and that's just going to come from experience.
Yeah, I agree. And I totally agree. There's principles and there's frameworks, and there's some really good ways to do business and there's some really shit ways to do business.
Yeah.
But it's so context dependent. And I agree, like being well experienced and well versed is helpful for you to see patterns early. But there's certainly no one brush or one thing fits every situation. I agree with that.
Yep.
What behaviors do you think separate leaders that are respected from leaders that are obeyed by their people? Because there's a big difference there.
Absolutely. And I think the military is a really good example about this, because you look at military leadership, and I get told this quite a few times, that the military builds really great leaders. And I actually don't necessarily believe that. I think it's got the potential to, but the military is a very unique environment. If I give you an order, you legally have to do it. Like, you have to follow my direction. So otherwise you're going to get like legal consequences in the military. You'll get charged, you get done for insubordination. So then I think that's when you're relying on that, when you're relying on that fear, or you're relying on your rank or your position to get something done, that's when you're going to get people obeying you, but not respecting you. And when people are obeying you, they're probably just going to do enough to keep their job. They're going to do enough to not get in trouble, but they're never going to give you that true 100%. They're never going to go and give you that discretionary effort where they think of maybe a better way of doing things, or they're just going to approach 10 more people about something just to try and get a better result. They're not going to do that if they don't respect you as opposed to obey you. Look, how do you build that sort of relationship? Again, I genuinely believe that just comes down to your relationship with your team. If you've got that mentality that it's not my job to be liked, and I interpret that as I need to make tough decisions, I need to have hard conversations, I need to maintain high standards, that absolutely is the role of every single leader. But you don't have to do it in a way that makes people fear you. You don't have to do it in a way that makes people not respect you. You need to maintain that trust and that relationship within your team. We don't respect people we don't like. That's as simple as that. There's an element where you can still, you've got an element of that person's really good at what they do, but I'm never going to give them 100%, because as much as I respect them, I really wouldn't care too much if they failed, because it'd be good to see them taken down a peg. So when you invest in your team, when you get to know them, when you genuinely care about them as well, when you are invested in their own professional development, that's where it sort of comes a long way. I do an exercise with all of my leadership training where I get people to think about the greatest leader they've ever worked for, the one that they gave 100% for, the leader that shaped them to the person they are now, the one that they still think about or they still reach out to every now and then. What separated that leader from the good ones? And through this exercise, I get a list of attributes that people wouldn't expect. Things, the top one at the moment, and I record this and I update the slide every single time I do it.
Good. Yeah, it's so good.
The top one is they're vulnerable. And by vulnerability, that just meant that they were happy to say that they made a mistake. They didn't know the answer. They were able to show the team and ask the team's perspective on things and didn't feel like they had to be up on a pedestal. The next thing, still surprises me. They knew everyone in the team's names. They knew bits about their family. They knew them at a personal level. That's the second highest one. I think it's like come up about 50 times now.
That's benevolence, like a genuine interest in other people. It's one of the pillars of trust that we teach. Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely. The other ones that come up, they're approachable. They were calm. They're things that we don't invest in, or many organizations don't invest in when it comes to leadership. We invest in decision-making frameworks, tough conversation frameworks. We are planning and processes and systems and all that sort of stuff, which are important, but that's not what's going to make you a genuinely great leader that gets 100% out of their people. To build that genuine respect, it takes what is always referred to as soft skills. And ultimately, I believe it comes down to knowing your people, caring about your people to some element, and investing in that relationship. And I think I'll probably talk to a couple of things later on in the workshop, which are going to later on in the podcast, which are going to relate to that, about tools that we can very easily get to know your people.
Yeah, I love that. And trust me, if we were filming for like 4 hours, which we could comfortably do, we'd get into that in a lot of detail. But that's cool. We can skim the surface, and people know where to find us if they want to dig a little bit deeper. Hey, what's up, guys? Just a quick note to say, hopefully you're enjoying the show. If you are, feel free to like and subscribe, and you can share it with your mates. You can also find us at LinkedIn and on Facebook, or check us out at www.aegisleadership.co.nz. Cool. That's all from me. Let's get back to the show. Yeah, some advice I got from a boss that I really expected early in the bid is like, Turks, everyone calls me Turks. Turks, I should be able to rip your rank badge off your uniform and you maintain the same degree of influence in the room as if you had it on. And that was his way of saying, if you rely on that too much, mate, you've missed the point.
Absolutely.
So that was really important. And another nice cue that I got from somebody I really respected was, what are your troops saying about you when you're not in the room?
Yeah.
And that wasn't to frighten me. It was around, well, like, have I put my best foot forward, and have I showed them that I care? Whether that's asking, hey, mate, how's your day going? Or, hey, look, I know you really want to go and do that training. We'll step you away for a week so you can go do that course. Or those little things, right? Hey, man, I know your mum's sick. How you getting on?
Yep.
Hey, go do some PT. You're looking a bit fried. Go and hit the gym. Let off some steam. Like, it's not always the cuddles and kisses stuff. Sometimes it's the, hey, mate, I need you to come in and we're going to have a chat about that stuff the other day.
Yep.
I think, you missed the mark there. And that stuff's even more important because the troops expect you to hold the line. Like, you're the guardian of the standards and the culture within your team.
Yeah.
And they expect that of you, to hold the line. Hey, if someone's missing the mark and we haven't been able to resolve it at the peer-to-peer level, they expect the boss to step in and rectify that situation.
Yep.
Or at least start to find the solution, eh?
Yes, absolutely. I think, and this is some research that I saw, which I found really interesting, and it's saying that if we take two extremes, people would rather work for someone who gives guidance in a really toxic, aggressive way than they would for someone who doesn't give any guidance. So, not saying neither of them are the right answer. The right answer is you give feedback, guidance quite frequently in a way that you care for your people and you show warmth. But it just shows that we would still rather work for someone that is like that bully potentially, who gives very clear guidance. And even if it's in a very unhelpful way, then we would work for someone who you just don't know where you stand. You don't know what's expected of you. You finish a task and you don't know if it's good or if it's bad. So I'm not saying we should ever be that toxic, aggressive leader that gives that sort of feedback. That's not the way to go. But it just shows that people would still rather have that sort of feedback than have nothing.
Yeah. And I was reading in a book the other day. It was a parenting book, actually, but it's like, your child needs two things: essentially, if you boil it all down,
Yeah.
they need you to hold them to really high standards. That's important as a
Yep.
parent. They need to be striving and stretching themselves and growing and developing and all of those things, discovering the world. But you need to also, alongside that, show them the support and enable them to
Yeah.
reach those high standards. And I was just thinking teams right there. I was like, we need to hold our people to a high standard. Otherwise, if they're not striving, what's the point?
Yep.
Everyone's stagnant and miserable.
Hmm.
But on the other hand, we have to provide them the support and the opportunity and the sounding board and the guidance to hit those high standards. Otherwise, it's just not going to work out very well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there
Yeah.
you're touching also on that other misnomer when it comes to leadership, is that sometimes people think that leadership is about creating a comfortable environment where everyone's can do their own thing and they're all happy and engaged. But those organizations have got just as much turnover as the most toxic organizations. Everyone wants to be challenged, but they want to be challenged in a supported way, like you talked about, not challenged in a threatening way.
Mhm.
And that threaten can be job security and all those sort of things. But you're spot on. It's not about not having high standards. People like working for teams that have got high standards. As long as it's a
Mm.
great environment, that we've got a high trust environment within that team, people will thrive.
Yeah. And we want people operating just in that zone of proximal development, just outside of the comfort zone where, hey, it's a stretch enough that it's a little bit uncomfortable and there's plenty of opportunity for growth and development there, but we're not so overwhelmed that we're drowning. It's
Yeah.
it's always finding that sweet spot with our people, because I've been into a lot of teams where everyone's comfortable and sitting around on their chuff, and there's a lot of very unhappy people within those teams. Like, we're designed as humans to strive, to try and move forward and attain something.
Yep. And I think the biggest way you kill that is when people are challenged, when people are stretched, they make mistakes, they get punished. So
Yeah.
that's completely unfair. You cannot create an environment or a culture or set KPIs and goals that are genuinely stretching people and not expect them to make mistakes along the way. So that is absolutely that's what you get when you set high standards, is you get mistakes, but we learn from them, we move on. We don't need to punish unless there's a genuine violation, I suppose. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And that's where that question comes in. It's like, good, what did you learn?
yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
that's, yeah, so good, man. Could talk on that all day. All right. What are the early warning signs that a team is starting to lose trust in its leadership, man? What have you been seeing, or what have you experienced?
I think silence is the biggest. I think as soon as you start getting silence within the team, people aren't offering their suggestions, people aren't actually raising concerns or raising problems with things or actually even disagreeing with you as a leader. I think that's the sign that things are probably either people have checked out and they don't care, or they're too scared of the consequences if they do speak up. So I think silence is probably the biggest one. And you can even see that within the team, like silence within the room. People aren't collaborating anymore. People aren't taking an interest in what someone else is doing and offering ways for them to support them. But definitely from a leader, when you're sitting in meetings and you're just seeing that people aren't raising concerns, people aren't challenging you, or people aren't, and this ties into psychological safety, but people aren't admitting their mistakes, or people are hiding mistakes until it's now 3 weeks after the mistake occurred and I can't hide it anymore. And now it's a catastrophe. Whereas if the mistake got raised very early on, it'll be sorted. So
Yeah.
I think silence is a really big early warning sign.
Yeah, I totally agree. And just like out and out compliance, or just people going along with it type thing.
Yep.
Like you say, I think at that stage they've checked out, they've run out of fucks or whatever it might be, and they're just drifting along with the breeze.
Yeah.
What advice would you give in that situation, James? Or if you were in that seat, how would you go about starting to address that? Because
Yeah.
that silence is going to be deafening, Like, we're very intuitive creatures. That leader is going to feel like something's wrong.
Yeah.
How would you go about getting after that one?
Some really honest conversations. I'd be
Mm,
sitting down with all the people in the team and and seeing trying to find out what's going on and trying to get. And look, to be fair, you should also. I would imagine that your gut would be telling you something.
totally.
If you're embedded with that team, you'd be understanding roughly some of the challenges that are going on. but you have to try and understand that and then call it out and address it. So nothing is irreparable. And the way we fix things is with conversations. And as a leader, sometimes you're the one facilitating that conversation. Sometimes there can be really tough calls that have to be made. So one person can create that silence. If there's that one person who is potentially a really high achiever, but they're a toxic member of the team, they can kill the team. And they might be performing at 100%, but the rest of your team's at 50 or 40%. And that's hard. You have to start that with a conversation with those people, but you also need to be willing to make that really, really tough call that sometimes you have to let those people go. Like one of the most challenging things I ever had to do as a leader was let go my highest performer.
Yeah, it's
And
really tempting for selfish reasons just to excuse or overlook their behavior, because they do help to push the needle in one department, but
Yep.
on the other hand, they're eroding the shit out of your culture.
Yep. And it was a really tough call. And I spent months before that point before I made that call, talking to that person, trying to mentor them, trying to get them to see where they needed to develop. So when the call was made to let them go, it wasn't a surprise to them. But the team and how they fit into it was just completely misaligned. And there was a short-term pain where I lost one of my best soldiers, but it was made up far quicker than I expected, because now all of a sudden the whole team just lifted up and filled that gap, because they could see that we had a commitment to the team and to the culture that we had. So that's a very specific example, but I think your gut's going to tell you what the problem is a bit, but then you need to start just having honest conversations with the people and saying, hey, what is it that's causing the problem? And look in the mirror. How have you been interacting during meetings? Have you been shutting down ideas? Have you been calling out people in ways that have humiliated them or put them down in front of people? Look in the mirror as well to make sure that you're not the cause. And it's really hard to get that feedback from people, because if you've created that fear from your own leadership style, it's unlikely you're going to get honest feedback when you go to people and you say, hey, what's going on within the team? You're probably not going to get that. So that's when you sort of might need those external people to come in, or you need that. Sometimes an anonymous 360 might raise those sort of things, but I find it pretty unlikely. So yeah, look in the mirror first as well.
Yeah, it's unlikely they're going to come to you if there's that power gradient, or you're like their 1-up or 2-up manager, and like you say, you walk around like you own the show and you're an intimidating dude.
Yeah.
Like, people just aren't going to come and be honest with you, no doubt. And actually, funny old thing, I wrote a post about this one today around, we're talking with a lot of teams where they think they have a team problem when in fact they normally have an individual problem. It's normally one person in the team, the fly in the ointment, that's causing the issues. And all of these people are just having to manage themselves and come up with other ways of doing things and dancing around the problem, where like implementing any strategy in the world's not going to help you, mate. You need to sit down with that person that's causing the shit and deal with it. And that takes a lot of courage. That's tough.
It does. And it takes courage, and it is tough, but it can be some of the most rewarding things. Like if I reflect on my team, I had to spend a lot of time with one person who was brilliant. They were really good at what they did, but they were old school with their leadership style. And it wasn't appropriate. It wasn't creating the culture we wanted, and it was suppressing the rest of the team because they didn't want to make a mistake in front of this person. And it took from a leadership perspective, it took at least probably would have taken a year to sort of get through, but it's probably one of the things I'm most proud of with how I look at how that person is now and the teams that they're leading now. They're killing it. They're doing so well. They've got the teams respect them. The teams like them. So when you can look back on your career, I don't genuinely believe that you're going to look back on your career and you'll probably be proud of, but it's not going to be really feel that much for you when you made a 200% profit on the organization, or you nailed this project. You'll be proud of it, but it won't be the thing. It won't mean as much to you as when someone calls you up and says, hey, look, you're like how you treated me as a leader. That's given me the confidence to take this next step and apply for this promotion. I'm in a leadership position now, and I'm reflect on the way that you led me. That's what's really helping me at the moment. Like, they're the things that'll give you a smile on your face for a very long period of time. Whereas making a ton of money, Right, it's good, and you'll be a bit proud of it, but I don't think when it comes to leadership, it won't matter as much.
A couple of things that just jumped out there I was thinking about is a saying that everything you ever wanted is on the other side of fear.
Yeah,
And what that means is it's that the Stoic principle around the obstacle is the way.
yeah,
You feel that feeling in your gut. You're like, shit, this has been pissing me off. I haven't done anything about it because I'm afraid or whatever it might be. But that feeling around, that's the thing. That's the unlock that you need to address. And until you do, it's
yeah,
just going to fester.
yeah, absolutely. And those difficult conversations is the perfect example of that. Like
Yeah.
you know when something's happened, you feel it. You feel that little tension. You feel that I should address this, but I don't want to make a mountain of a molehill. I don't want to upset them. I don't want to do this. But you're right. If that discomfort, that fear of that conversation is
We all
probably
feel it.
telling you
Yeah.
that's what has to happen. And the sooner you do it, the simpler the conversation is.
Yeah, and what it seems to look like, if that's just left unchecked for period of
Yeah,
time, for a long period of time, they find themselves in like litigation hearings and things. The lawyers get involved, and
absolutely.
it has far more impactful consequences. So
Mm,
best to take that hit up front. Eat a bit of glass, deal with that short term discomfort for the longer term benefit.
absolutely. Yeah.
How do leaders lose their edge over time? It's like we've spoken about this. It's real easy to get comfortable,
Yeah.
resting on your laurels, all that sort of stuff. How do you see them losing their edge?
I think that for something just as for losing your edge and losing that, I think it's when you think that you've got it, when you think that you've made it, and it's not saying that you haven't. Like you could be a great leader, but
Mm,
it's part of that journey. You always should be learning. You should always be experimenting, trying new things. I talked about it, excuse me. I talked about it on that last podcast where we don't want to be the leader that's got 1 year of experience they've repeated 10 times. We want the leaders that's got 10 years of experience where they've tried new things, they've experimented, they've iterated, they've made mistakes, they've failed, they've learned, and every single year we grow as a leader. So I think that that's the mindset we need to have to stop the ability to lose your edge is don't get complacent and always keep looking for the next thing. One of the SAS, it's not excellence, it's the relentless pursuit of excellence.
yeah,
And I think that that's what it needs to be. We're not trying to be excellent. We're continuously trying to pursue that because it's a goal that it's a goal that we don't have to reach. It's just as long as we're always trying to take one step forward, learn something. It may work, it may not work. We've tried something, it failed. Good. I know not to do that again. But when we have that when we have that growth mindset of that pursuit of excellence, I think that's how we avoid that complacency and losing our edge.
yeah. And like when we talk about these types of things, all this advice that I've got from people all through my career and through life just comes flooding back to my mind. But it's like, that's a bit of an alarm bell. If you're sitting in your office with your feet up on the desk and you're smoking a cigar, you're like, oh man, I'm super comfortable right now. That's a huge warning sign, eh? And I think one guy explained it to me where he's like, Turks, life should be like you're cruising along looking for deeper holes to jump in. So you
Yeah.
jump in this hole and you get to the bottom, you're like, shit, how am I going to get out? And
Yeah.
then you're in there for a while, like panicking and shit. And then you figure out a way,
Yeah.
you crawl your way out of this top of this hole. You're like, oh, thank God. And then he's like, okay, you need to go and find a deeper hole to dive in now. So you're just
Yeah.
constantly diving in deeper holes. I was thinking about that a lot there is, yeah, that feeling of comfort is probably a really good sign that, hey, man, you need to go and jump in a deeper hole, whatever that looks like.
I really like that. I think, yeah, that's brilliant. Not just keep learning, but keep looking for challenges. Keep looking for the
Mm.
next thing that you're uncomfortable with. That's unreal. I like that.
Yeah, I think about the weirdest shit when we're talking. It's good. It just sort of pops up. People probably take the piss out of it, but it's all good. I do
Nice.
not care. If you were appointed CEO of a struggling organization tomorrow, what would you focus on in the first 30 days? I love this question. Like, there's a lot to think about there.
Yeah, that's huge.
Do your best.
No, I reckon, I agree. I think it's a great question. And again, this is just my perspective,
Totally.
especially when if you're looking at this from a CEO of an organization level, I'd be probably making a call on not making any decisions for that first 30 days. The first 30 days for me is to completely understand this organization and understand the challenges that are being faced at the deepest level I possibly can. And I need to I would set a timeline that I am going to start making a change where my reconnaissance discovery stage finishes, but I would be talking to everyone within that organization that I could, and going right down to the floor, to talking to the people doing the work who aren't leaders, who are just the technical experts, understand from them what's going on, understand what their challenges are, understand what they think should be done or the opportunities that there are. So for me, that's all the 30 days would be doing that. One of my favorite sayings it's attributed to Albert Einstein, which is, if I had 1 hour to save the world, I'd spend 55 minutes understanding the problem and 5 minutes making the decision, solving the actual problem.
There's a similar one around chopping down a tree. If I had an hour to chop down a tree, I'd spend the first 50 minutes sharpening my saw.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
real similar. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. And I think, and that's something that I just don't, I think that, and I see this quite often across organizations, where we think the solution lies in the genius of the leader, or we think the solution lies in the genius of the executive team. But you've got an organization of up to thousands of people who have, like, the more of those brains that you can leverage, the better your decisions, the better the organization's going to be. As brilliant as one person is, 10 people are probably going to come up with better ideas. 10 people combined will come up with better ideas than what that one person could. So as that new CEO, just walk the floor, and leaders should be doing this anyway, is walking the floor, talking to people, just understanding their challenges, understand what's going on for them, because there's so much opportunity that is just not accessed. There's so much intelligence that's just not accessed at the lowest levels of organizations. So I think to answer the question, that's all what I'd be doing. I'd be understanding the organization, as that would be my full-time job for 30 days, talking to everyone I possibly could.
And again, that lines up with some really good advice that I've had from people in the past that I've respected around, when you move into a new seat or a new leadership position or whatever it might be, you shouldn't make any significant decisions for quite some time.
Yep.
You should spend your time as a sponge learning about the system you're a part of. It's its own ecosystem.
Yeah.
Who's who in the zoo, who are the key people, who's going well, who's not. And really, reconnaissance is a great word for it. Just running recon for a good few months, but so you can actually make well-informed decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And also, one other thing you spoke about there was there's so much collective experience, and you'd be so arrogant to think, oh, but I know better. And actually, I worked at our military leadership schools for a long time as directing staff, and that was cool, working with a lot of people and learning some cool stuff. But that was one of the first things that I used to say in front of the new group that would come in. It's like, I would be incredibly arrogant to stand up here and tell you this is how you should lead and this is the world according to me, because I've got over 200 years of military experience sitting in front of me right now. Like, why the hell would I not draw on that?
Yep.
So I know humility is big in the SF world, and like, that's so critical. As I agree with what you said earlier. If you think you've clocked the game, you're only moments away from falling off the cliff.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. We'll bring it into land shortly, but what have you changed your mind on, man, from a leadership perspective? Is there anything where you started out early days and now you're like, nah, I've changed, I'm a different person? Or have you learned any lessons the hard way? Or what's kind of jumping up for you now?
Oh, look, I think I mentioned this in that last podcast. Every single time I've led a team, I've changed afterwards. I've made mistakes. I've learned things that have worked well that would surprise me. If I look back to my first leadership roles, I was so focused on being that leader who was in command, in control, who had all the answers, maintained high standards, and wasn't my job too liked. How I translated that back then was that I should be yelling at people if they're not maintaining the right standard. I should be right on top of people, not two-way conversations, and not trying to understand things. So I think what the biggest things, if I look from that to where I sort of finished my leadership time and what I do now, I think that the underestimating the importance of relationships and trust would probably be one of my biggest shifts. That seeing that is the foundation of good leadership. If you don't have good relationships, if you don't have trust, your ability to influence is going to be so limited. So I think that's one of the biggest things. And the other one that I think that you used the phrase earlier, maybe before we started, but we have to be curious, because our brain is taking shortcuts where all we usually have is surface level information about what we're looking at or the people we're dealing with. Our brain's job is to save energy and make judgments. So we need to sort of really have that curiosity mindset of going into like talking to people and actually trying to understand like things better, and not relying on the answer we've already just jumped to in our brain.
Yeah. We are quite literally blind to the majority of the world. Whatever our little spotlight of focus isn't on, we're completely blind to that. And Daniel Kahneman has a really good book, Thinking Fast and Slow.
Yeah.
It's dense, too dense for someone as stupid as me, but there's some great stuff in there. But one of the biases that I remember from that one is what you see is not all there is.
Yes.
And what that means is we'll see something, make a snap judgment on it, but there's so many things within that context that we're completely blind to.
Yeah.
And the only way to overcome that, by definition, is to seek to understand and ask a lot of good questions.
Absolutely. Yep. The book's hard. It's very, very hard work, I found, but I think it's some really great things in there.
Yeah, it sits on my bookshelf, and there's a handful of books that I try to read periodically.
Yeah.
That's one of them that I'm going to have to revisit that one a few more times to let it soak in.
Don't do the audio book. It's way too hard.
Nah, there's something about reading where you read it, you hear the narrative in your own words in your head. I think it allows you to process things at a deeper level.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love listening to podcasts and stuff, but reading is the gold standard.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, man, that's us. I think we'll have to do this every 6 months, man. What do you reckon?
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good, mate.
Yeah. And how do people find James Jensen or K6 Consulting?
LinkedIn's the platform I use the most. So that's where my Australian business really sits. So James Jensen at LinkedIn, and my website is k6consulting.com.au. So that's the two main ones. I don't really use the other social media platforms too much.
Yeah, all good. Do one and do it well.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Hey, man, as always, pleasure to have you on. Some very, very cool insights, and we could have talked for about 20 hours, but I think we'll just do that 20 hours over a period of years.
That's good. Sounds good.
Nice. All right, man. Cheers. Hey, guys, if you enjoyed that, then you can check us out at www.aegisleadership.co.nz, or you can find us on LinkedIn and on Facebook. Once again, thanks very much to our mates at Dark Horse Coffee. We really appreciate your support of the show. That's all for today. Catch you later.